Brian Flores' racial discrimination lawsuit against the NFL and multiple teams can proceed, a judge said today. Former Miami Dolphins head coach and current Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores' lawsuit against the NFL and three teams, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, and the Houston Texans, can proceed instead of going to arbitration, a federal judge ruled today. This is a big win for Brian Flores, who's been trying to get his lawsuit heard before a court of law and not be forced into a private arbitration. And Attorney General Merrick Garland's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Wednesday grew heated when Republican lawmakers grilled him on the prosecution of protesters on both sides of the abortion fight. And the House Ethics Committee unanimously voted to authorize an investigation into whether Mr. Santos, that's George Santos, broke various laws or engaged in sexual misconduct. That is the congressman from New York who has been just plagued with allegations that he has lied on everything from his resume to his taxes. And Caitlin Perez, the first Latina to be crowned Miss Coppin State University in Baltimore, is facing a backlash, including harassment from online critics who said the role that she occupies should be given to a Black woman. The backlash started after a TikTok video that Caitlin posted online went viral. The president of Coppin State University says it is a multicultural university, and he stands by the university's selection of Caitlin Perez as Miss Coppin State. Millions of Americans will get less money in food stamps this month as a federal pandemic food benefit, which gave more money to SNAP recipients, ended yesterday, even though grocery prices remain high. Lower income families may get only $6 per person each day for food. And experts say this is hardly enough money to even have and maintain a healthy diet. The longstanding pay disparity between the genders has barely improved in the past 20 years. A new report from Pew Research shows raising difficult questions about why women's recent gains in higher education and workplace opportunities haven't put them on more equal financial footing. In 2022, women made only 82 cents at the median for every dollar made by men. Pew found, compared with 80 cents in 2002. So we were making 80 cents in 2002, and now we're making 82 cents. This report also looked at race and found that Black women made only 70% as much as men. Hispanic women made only 65% as men. It's unbelievable that in 2023, women, particularly given all the work that we do, and given that this is Women's History Month, we still are talking about the fact that women make less money than men, despite all of our contributions to this society. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin, and this is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. And in this second hour, I am taking your calls. I want to hear from you. Give me a call at 1-800-920-1580, or if you're watching on our YouTube page or YouTube station, post your comment. If you have a question or a comment, I just might read your comment or your question. This hour, in this second hour, we are going all in on the Alex Murdaugh trial. The guilty verdict reached just after several hours of jury deliberations. I'm going to have in this hour Blake Douglas. He is the Hilton Head Island reporter with the Hilton Head Island Packet. That's a news organization in South Carolina. And Blake has been in that South Carolina courtroom. So he's going to give us an inside look into what was happening as Alex Murdaugh took the stand in his own defense. Very risky for any defendant to take the stand, particularly a defendant who told a lie, a very big lie, to law enforcement and maintained that lie for as much as 20 months. Prosecutors gave a almost 4-hour closing argument where they hammered Alec Murdaugh about that lie and repeatedly told the jurors if this guy would lie about something so important as where he was right before his wife and son were murdered, then he would lie about anything. And the prosecutors over and over and over again gave the jurors their evidence, gave them what they believe was a clear path, told them use common sense. If you use your common sense, there will be but one determination. And according to the prosecutors, that one determination was guilty on both counts of murder. And apparently that 4-hour, very compelling argument by the prosecutors worked, because within several hours of deliberating, the jurors came back with a guilty verdict. When we come forward, Blake Douglas joins KBLA Talk 1580.
The South Los Angeles Clergy for Public Accountability invites you to an ecumenical and interfaith service in solidarity in support of our friend and brother, the Honorable Mark Ridley Thomas. Come join us this Sunday, March 5th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at the historic Holman United Methodist Church, located at 3320 West Adams Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. A veritable who's who of clergy will encircle Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas, praying that in the days ahead, justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And of course, the music is going to be fire. If you're a friend or a supporter of MRT, we hope you will come show your solidarity this Sunday, March 5th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at Holman United Methodist Church. Again, located at 3320 West Adams Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. We'll see you there.
Is the most powerful collection agency on earth. And if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate hikes are expected. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges on your tax debt daily. So if you owe the IRS with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. In fact, the experts at Optima Tax have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. After a 27-day trial, the disgraced and now infamous South Carolina attorney Alec Murdaugh was found guilty. This happened just a couple of hours ago, and he's found guilty of the 2021 killings of his wife and son. The verdicts on 2 charges of first-degree murder were reached by a jury after only 3 hours of deliberation. It came after closing arguments and testimony from over 70 witnesses over more than 5 weeks. The high-profile double murder has been covered in an ongoing and available now Netflix 2023 docuseries, Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal. So you can catch this docuseries now on Netflix. And there's also an HBO Max 2022 docuseries called Low Country, The Murdaugh Dynasty. So even before the determination that he was guilty, Netflix had a docuseries out, a multi-part docuseries called The Murdaugh Murders. It's only fitting, that name is only fitting, given that we now know that the jury, after 3 hours of deliberation, have determined that Alex Murdaugh is a murderer. Joining me now is Blake Edwards. He is a reporter in South Carolina who has been inside the courtroom of the Murdaugh trial. Welcome, Blake.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Help us understand. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And tell us, were you in trial every day, or were you just there today for the reading of the verdict?
No,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I called you Blake Edwards, and you're Blake Douglas. I'm sorry, Blake.
That's perfectly fine. No, I was not there every single day in the courtroom because of the nature of what I was doing for the Island Packet and the state newspaper in Columbia. I was providing the live updates as court went on. So for the first 4 weeks of the trial, I was there in Walterboro, just across from the courthouse. We had our other court reporters down there, John Monk, Ted Clifford, and Bristow Marchant. John Monk was inside the courtroom taking notes, and the rest of us were on the outside monitoring, keeping eyes on the live stream. There's obviously a case of this level. There have been cameras everywhere, just keeping folks up to speed with what was going on.
Help us understand how what was the media like? You're right, a case of this magnitude, particularly for this town in South Carolina. I mean, were there hundreds of media outlets outside of that courtroom every day?
It was, wouldn't say hundreds, but dozens for certain throughout the course of this trial. We had folks from the Wall Street Journal. We had folks from the Daily Mail over in the United Kingdom. And I saw recently now that the New Zealand Herald down in New Zealand has tweeted something about it. This case was, for all intents and purposes, as people called it in the lead up, the trial of the century here in South Carolina, and all of the media attention that it attracted. We even saw today that a juror at the 11th hour was dismissed from the jury because they had talked with other people about this. So the entire state of South Carolina and true crime folks around the world have been talking about this. So the media frenzy was real. There were entire lots blocked off for media trucks. Wow. There were food trucks outside the media center every day. There was a lot going on.
Fair to call this like a circus-like atmosphere outside that courtroom, Blake. Maybe organized, but still a circus. Help us understand how big Alex Murdaugh was and is in South Carolina, because those of us who are on the East Coast or the West Coast, I don't think we have a sense about his largeness. You know, we hear about big name celebrities or folks who are high profile, but he was, for all intents and purposes, a big celebrity in this town.
Oh yeah, not just Alex Murdaugh, but his entire family. I had mentioned a couple of times before that for 80 plus years, almost 90 years, a member of the Murdaugh family was the lead solicitor in this area. So especially in the legal community, in the legal sense, for Colleton County, Hampton County, and South Carolina at large, the Murdaugh dynasty, for lack of a better word, was extremely well known. Alex Murdaugh himself was very good at building relationships. He went on to play, he was, even way back when he was in high school, he was prom king in high school, played high school football. He went on to play football for the University of South Carolina, which is where kind of the first seeds of all this began to be planted, if his testimony was to be believed, because that is where he suffered a knee injury, which required several surgeries. And he says that that is how he became addicted to opiates, to painkillers, which he has pinned a lot of this on his addiction.
Yeah, tall guy, red hair, friends fondly called him Big Red. His kids' friends referred to him oftentimes, by that nickname, Big Red. Let's talk about that opioid addiction for a minute, Blake. Before the trial, was it well known in this community that he had this addiction? Was it talked about? Did people, know about it, or was this a revelation that just came out during the trial?
Yeah, this was something that up until, half a year or a year ago, a lot of people did not know. We heard testimony from his closest family members, his brothers, in-laws, that nobody really knew the links to what he was dealing with. We know that his sons and his wife all seemed to know. In fact, a month before Paul Murdaugh, his son, was killed, he had talked to his dad and said, hey, we need to talk about your pill addiction. We found a bunch of painkillers in your computer bag. Me and mom, Maggie Murdaugh, want to talk to you about this. So a lot more people had started to figure this out, but it wasn't until September 2021, a few months after the murders, that it really became common knowledge. And Alf Murdaugh came to investigators and told them, hey, I've been dealing with this for about 20 years now.
I'm taking your calls at 1-800-920-1580. Sean, calling from Oakland, California. You're on the line.
Oh, wow. I actually thought this guy was going to get off. Maybe it's my cynicism, and maybe it's just the track record of rich white folks. I'm a white guy, but I didn't watch the trial, but I read everything early in the morning. So I actually just think of this guy as the most heinous, serious con person you can possibly imagine, and a monster. That's what I wanted to say, but I'm glad that justice was served, because I was actually very concerned when I read that someone pushed over a box of tissue when he was crying. I'm like, oh no, here we go.
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, I'm like you. I don't know if I thought he was going to be found not guilty. I was thinking perhaps a hung jury. And as a parent, I just can't imagine shooting your child at close range with a gun that is so powerful that it blows your child's brain out of his head. That was the part that I was having a hard time wrapping my brain around, and thinking that there might be parents on that jury who would say, wait, this guy might be a liar. He might be a thief. He may have stolen money. He may be addicted to pills, but he loved his son. We saw that testimony of how close. He called him Papa. Throughout the trial, he kept referring to his son as Papa. And Maggie was Mag. So he had these nicknames for them that made them, that supported the testimony that they were so close. And then you're right, Sean. I was worried about the race issue too. Go ahead, Sean. Finish your point.
Well, real quick, I was going to say, I'll tell you just my instincts, because I obviously wasn't there, right? Scott Peterson here in California, we all know, killed his pregnant wife and unborn son, right? All circumstantial evidence, okay? People do these kind of things, but there are certain common sense factors that sometimes the law and the way our system works is not perfect, but Scott Peterson did it, no one else did it, and this guy did it, no one else did it, and I believe, thank goodness, justice was served in this case.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Thanks for calling. Blake, what's the sentiment you think of the town? So here's Sean saying, I did not think this guy was going to be convicted. I thought because of his money and his stature, and even because he's a white guy, that he was going to get off. Was that the sentiment you think of most folks on the ground in South Carolina?
Yeah, I think there's certainly, I can't speak for the entire area, obviously, but I definitely do think that there are a lot of people in this state, especially in that area, who thought that, having this trial in Colleton County, in the couple of counties where the Murdaughs were so powerful and were so deeply rooted, that, there's going to be at least one person on this jury that is enamored by the prestige, by the wealth of this family, and saying, this is a loving father, loving husband. How could he have done this? And so it is honestly kind of surprising, at least I myself was surprised, that the jury came back with such a quick verdict and such a quick guilty verdict. Although when I arrived in Walterboro the first week, I was speaking with a couple of folks on the ground who have said, hey, we've known for a very long time, or we've suspected for a long time that this family was kind of shady into some business they shouldn't have been in. And I suppose now we see that, the 12 folks on the jury, whether they were in that camp before the trial or not, they now are, and saying, well, this man has lied for most of his life. Why would he not lie to us?
Yeah, shady is a kind word, Blake, because Alec has been accused of like 99, counts of financial fraud. He stole from a settlement, a personal injury, wrongful death settlement, a woman that worked for him. So her family had to sue him. He also stole from his law firm. His law partners had to come and testify about discovering that he had stolen money from the firm. So this guy, he made a lot of enemies, clearly, with, I think it's close to $9 million he's been accused of stealing. Take another call now. Howard calling from Indianapolis. You're on the line, Howard. Fantastic. Thanks for calling.
And I'm going to just piggyback on something that you said earlier. Common sense will tell you he's at the kennel with Paul and Mag. Now, okay, the individuals or whoever was going to shoot them and not shoot him. Come on, give me a break. Once he said that he lied about everything to the jury, he lost the jury. They phased him out because they didn't know what to believe, in my opinion. So, justice has been served, and he's got to think about what he did, and for a very long time, in my opinion. And I'm just glad that his family, the son or whatever, can get peace and they can get some rest, because this guy, to me, was worse than a con artist. He took from everybody, never told the truth, didn't tell him what he was taking the money for, or nothing like that. And once he lied to the jury, he lost them, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Howard. Thanks for calling. I do want to ask you this, Blake. Buster. So Buster Murdaugh, he took the witness stand and he was supporting his dad. He talked about, coming down, him and his girlfriend coming to the house and then staying with the dad. And he testified that his father was distraught, a nervous wreck. And he believed authentically distraught, not faking, not, acting. And I thought that testimony might have swayed one or more jurors to thinking, well, wait a minute, if Buster, who obviously loved his mother, obviously loved his younger brother, if he was in close proximity with dad right after this, was able to observe his demeanor, able to have conversations with him, and he believed that dad didn't do it because he wouldn't have been there testifying if he thought dad did it, that maybe that would have swayed a juror. So what do you think jurors did with Buster's testimony?
Buster Murdaugh's really interesting piece in this, especially with his testimony, because when he took the stand, he was one of the first of several very anticipated witnesses. And when he went up to testify, he really wasn't there long, and he did not say a whole lot that we hadn't heard from earlier witnesses about Alex Murdaugh's relationship with his family, his emotional state after the murders took place. Now, obviously, he was a bit closer. He was with his father much of the time after the murders happened, but it was a little bit underwhelming, I think, for some folks in the courtroom and in the media covering. And in the lead up to this, Buster Murdaugh was actually well quoted telling reporters, I believe that this was with The Guardian in the UK, saying, hey, I don't want to see it written anywhere that I'm, out here supporting my father specifically. So.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. So you're saying Buster's testimony should not have been interpreted as supportive of his father?
That is at least what he told reporters in the lead up to the trial, and I'm sure that reporters will want to speak with Buster again now, and hopefully they'll remember that quote and kind of ask questions to that effect. Hey, did that change at any point? But looking back at what he actually said on the stand, he could certainly go back to that quote and say, hey, I never went up there and said I don't think that my dad did it. He just spoke generally about the the
right, what he observed that night before or the night of. You know, it has to be so difficult for you as the surviving child. Your mother's dead, your brother's dead, your father's facing life in prison, and now your whole family's wiped out, right? Your father never gets out of jail. Your mother's dead. Your brother. So here, Buster is basically an only child. He has relatives, so we know Maggie had at least some siblings, and we know that Alec had some siblings because both his brother testified and Maggie's sister testified. But boy, that must be the most agonizing feeling for this young man. As you said, reporters are going to want to talk to him. Buster probably doesn't want to talk to a single solitary soul. I cannot imagine that he's, raring to give any kind of interviews and to recount this horrific experience that, you hope no family ever has to go through. To go through a public trial like this, have all of their laundry aired before the world, docuseries on HBO Max, docuseries on Netflix. So this story is going to be told for decades to come. I'm talking with Blake Douglas. He's a reporter from South Carolina. He was inside that courtroom. He's been following the Alec Murdaugh double murder trial. When we come forward, more on the trial of the century right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Julius White. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A verdict has been reached in the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial.
Mr. Murdaugh, you now having been found guilty of 2 counts of murder involving your wife and your son, 2 counts of possession of a weapon commission of a violent crime.
And as for sentencing for the former high-profile South Carolina lawyer, according to the trial judge,
for murder is 30 years. The maximum sentence is life in prison as to each count. And on the weapons charge, the sentence is up to 5 years or 5 years, which has to be concurrent if a life sentence is imposed.
However, sentencing was postponed. I'm Julius White on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
In Westminster on the 405 northbound right at Bolsa Avenue got a crash. It is blocking that off-ramp. You are going to see some slowing coming away from at least Bristol Street. In Commerce on the 5 southbound after Atlantic Boulevard, clearing that crash over to the right shoulder, but it's still going to be slow from the 510 split. And in Glendora, 210 eastbound before Grand Avenue, got a crash, and the 2 middle lanes are going to be blocked there.
Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Today marks an unflattering milestone for Clippers guard Russell Westbrook. It's been exactly 30 days since Westbrook won an NBA game. The last win for Westbrook was February 2nd at Indiana when he was with the Lakers. The Lakers lost their next 2 games before trading Westbrook on February 8th. The Clippers have lost 3 straight since the All-Star break. Westbrook is putting up decent numbers in 3 games with the Clippers. He's averaging 16 points, 9.3 assists, 4.3 turnovers, and shooting 52%. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
Aaron at Original Taco Pete's. Come in today for our tasty seasoned black taco. We're at 3272 West Slauson, off Crenshaw, or call 323-348-4441.
Hi, I'm civil rights attorney Areva Martin, host of Areva Martin in Real Time, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Be sure to tune in weekdays at 4:35 p.m. starting Tuesday, March 7th for your daily download on the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. The case is sure to have many twists and turns, and our program will be the show of record in the case of United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas. Thomas. We have our own seasoned justice correspondent who will be checking in with us to keep you up to speed on the daily details of this high-profile legal case. Be sure to tune into Areva Martin in real time, weekdays at 4:35 p.m., starting Tuesday, March 7th, for United States versus Mark Willie Thomas, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Santa Anita Park, the premier race place for thoroughbred racing, and Sapphire Marketing have combined to present the Big Cat Party in the elegant Chandelier Room on Saturday, March 4th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. and after party until 7 p.m. This is a VIP event for the grown and classy. Your VIP access gets you complimentary beer and champagne upon arrival, one per guest, with an amazing buffet, complimentary cocktail tasting, live entertainment, and exciting live thoroughbred racing. Tickets can be purchased online at santaanita.com/sapphire or call 626-574-6402. The after party starts after the last race, which includes more food, more drinks, more music, and a meet and greet with the jockeys. That's the Big Cat Party, Saturday, March 4th in the Chandelier Room at Santa Anita Park, the premier race spot. Tickets can be purchased online at santaanita.com/sapphire or call 626-574-6402.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com. California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com.
The U.S. premiere of the official Bob Marley One Love Experience has arrived in Los Angeles. Open now through April 23rd at Ovation Hollywood on the corner of Hollywood and Highland. Tickets start at $20 plus fees and are available at BobMarleyEXP.com. That's Bob Marley EXP.
I'm back with Blake Douglas. He is a reporter with the Hilton Head Island Hackett, South Carolina media outlet. And Blake has been in the courtroom for this Alex Murdaugh trial. Blake, we know that the judge did not sentence Alec today. He deferred it until Friday morning at 9 a.m. due to what the judge says, the lateness of the hour. We know he's facing up to life in prison on those 2 murder charges. Any prediction about what you think the judge is going to do tomorrow when he sentences Alex Murdaugh?
Yeah, and I expect Judge Newman has been known for some hard sentences, so I definitely expect him to reach for that maximum sentence. And I, of course, don't want to downplay what has happened here today, but even if Alex Murdaugh were to receive the minimum sentence for these crimes, he did go on the stand and admit to the bevy of financial charges that he is facing, which even if he were to receive the minimum sentence in this case, would put him in jail for the rest of his life anyway. So a lot of this case was more about Alex Murdaugh clearing his name in the deaths of his wife and son, attempting to do so, than necessarily saying, okay, I'm not going to go to jail, or I'm only going to go to jail for a couple of years.
Yes, important point to make. Given all of the financial fraud charges that he faced after this trial, he was going to jail. And the question was, do I go to jail for financial fraud, or do I go to jail with a conviction for having killed my wife and son. Let's talk about him taking the witness stand, Blake. You know, legal experts, I'm a lawyer, civil rights lawyer, been involved in a lot of trials. A defendant taking the stand in their own defense is always risky, but it's particularly risky when you've told a big fat lie to law enforcement and you've maintained that lie. Now, experts will say he had no choice because 10 folks had already testified that his voice was on this video that was on Paul's phone. And it's a video that was made right before the murders or right before the phones went dead. So jurors would have been sitting there thinking, okay, you were there. You were at the scene of the murders. You were at that kennel. But do you think that's what did Alec Murdaugh in? Was him taking the witness stand and having to admit to those financial crimes that he's been accused of?
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing to look at because, as you said, on the one hand, if Alex Murdaugh does not go to the stand and explain or try to explain, I didn't trust law enforcement, I was having paranoid thoughts induced by my drug habits. If he doesn't do that, then I think the jury comes back with an even quicker verdict because they have this question that the defense would not have ever addressed. Again, as an outsider looking in, not being able to see exactly what he was thinking, but it seems like this was a last-ditch effort to go up there, try to explain this in the best terms that he knew he could, and tried to tell his side of the story. Now, I think ultimately it hurt him because the prosecution answered back with a good strategy to go to him to run through all these financial crimes and say, do you remember lying to these people for years? Do you remember sitting down with these people you're representing, some of which have received grievous injuries, bodily injuries that would leave them with severe challenges for the rest of their lives, who've put their trust in you? You sat down with them and you lied to their faces. You looked them in the eye and told them that, you're trying to get them their money and yet you took it. So the prosecution choosing to do that, to go through all these cases and highlight to the jury, this man has been lying not only to his clients, but to people close to him for his entire life. So chances are he's probably lying to you too. I think the state did a good job of highlighting that.
Well, Alec had a response. He tried to parse his lies and say, yes, I did lie in those situations, but categorically, and he was pretty emphatic on the stand, I'm not lying about killing my, as he called them, Pawpaw and Mags. And then he came up with, his theory that he left the kennel right before the phones went dead. He went home. I think his story got a little fuzzy when he said he went to the house and he took a nap because there wasn't really enough time to take a nap. Because then the GPS on his phone started moving again. So they were able to track his phone to see that he was up and moving about. So he was leaving the house, headed to his mother's house with this, what the prosecution said, made up alibi. Started calling all kinds of people, calling Maggie's phone. He even called a restaurant, calling all of these folks. And they said to try to create this alibi. Do you think this is a case of a lawyer who knows the inside of a courtroom? He was once, I think, a volunteer or worked in some capacity as a prosecutor. As you said, 3 generations of prosecutors in this town. Do you think it was a lawyer who thought, I'm so smart, I can outsmart law enforcement, I can outsmart the jury, I'll come up with this story about how I wasn't there and I was, on my way to my sick mom's house and they'll believe me?
Yeah, and that certainly could have been his thought process going through all of this. If the prosecutors went to great length to talk about his legal success, to talk with his former law partners and people who tried cases with him, all of which said, yeah, Alex Murdaugh was a very successful lawyer. He was settling all these cases. He was getting all of this money legally and illegally, and he understands how to play the emotions of a courtroom. Obviously, you need that in order to be successful in the type of law that he was practicing. And he understands how to build relationships with people and for lack of a better word, how to manipulate people. The prosecution was very heavy on that. I think, that was kind of a good lead up for them to leave the jury with as he was preparing to take the stand. And again, they returned to that when they, in their closing arguments, they, have highlighted, hey, this man, not only is he a liar, but he's very good at it. I think lead prosecutor Creighton Waters repeatedly said, hey, this was effortless for you to lie to your family and the people you were representing.
Yeah, I think one of the lies or the way the prosecutor characterized the lie was, why would you lie about something so important as where you were right before your wife and son, two people you tell us you love dearly, that you love more than life? Wouldn't you want to tell the truth about everything you did so that the police can have the best information possible to find the killer? If you're not the killer, wouldn't you want the police? And I think that probably resonated with jurors. We know the prosecutor came out and said, what a great day for the people of South Carolina. This is from the Attorney General, Alan Wilson. And Creighton Waters, who you just referenced, says justice was done today. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you do wrong, if you break the law, if you murder, then justice will be done in South Carolina. Obviously, the lead prosecutor feeling very good about the outcome of this case. They spent countless hours trying their case, making the case, as you just said, that this guy is a pathological liar and he cannot be believed. When we come forward, Blake, I want to talk about that visit to the estate where Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were murdered. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Job done. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendis. Story courtesy of CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. Representative Barbara Lee holds her first campaign rally at Laney College in Oakland, California, declaring, "We fight for freedom, dignity, justice, and together we win." Representative Lee said that that's why she's running for U.S. Senate. She is the highest-ranking African-American woman in the U.S. Congress and the only African-American so far in the 2024 California senatorial race. Lee, who is 76, is serving her 12th term in the U.S. Congress. I'm Maisha Cairo for KBLA 1580, and that's your K-Black Minute News.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
Congratulations to the Radiology Department of the County of Los Angeles for being this week's winner of KBLA's Office of the Week. Log on to KBLA1580.com to enter your office to win lunch for 10, delivered by John O'Groats Family Restaurant.
Did you know that California has the first in the nation task force to study reparations for African Americans? The work of the task force is to examine and recommend to the state legislature potential remedies of compensation, rehabilitation, and restitution for African Americans, with a special consideration for the descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. The task force has been hosting public hearings across the state to create awareness and educate the public. Be part of history and join them for public comment from 9 to 10 a.m. on March 3rd and 4th in Sacramento at the next Reparations Task Force meeting. For more information, visit the California Department of Justice website at oag.ca.gov. That's oag.ca.gov. Or you can send them an email from the website. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Tune in to More Than That with Gia Peppers live this Sunday at 4 p.m. on KBLA Talk 1580 or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is sponsored by MasterCard, supporting future entrepreneurs with the digital tools and resources they need to thrive, because blazing a trail for tomorrow's superstars is priceless.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm back with Blake Douglas. He is a reporter with the Hilton Head Island Packet, and he was in that courtroom in South Carolina throughout this trial, sometimes inside the courtroom, sometimes outside the courtroom, but he was there. And he's joining me today and helping us break down what happened in the Alec Murdaugh double murder trial. Blake, nobody seems to be shedding any tears for Alec. I'm reading some of the posts. Eric Bland, who represents the family of Gloria Satterfield, that's the housekeeper who had a slip and fall accident at their home. She died as a result of this slip and fall. He says his power, talking about Alex, prestige and money afforded him no special treatment. Alex's life of lies and deceit ended today. Maggie and Paul are vindicated. Justice prevails. And he went on to say the ex-lawyer will drink from the same cup of justice as every other citizen and other convicted murderers. Do you think that's going to be the sentiment, Blake, of most folks in this county, that this guy, this rich guy, who was very privileged and used his privilege to manipulate people, to steal from people, got what he deserved?
Yeah, from the limited perspective that I was able to gather while I was there in Walterboro, talking with folks outside the courthouse and just kind of on the streets, that certainly seemed to be the case. The few folks I talked to in person, like I mentioned earlier, had indicated, they didn't have the highest opinions of Alex Murdaugh. I can put it that way. And, obviously the folks like the family of Mallory Beach, who died in Paul Murdaugh's 2019 boat crash, I'm sure are, happy to see this verdict handed down. I'm sure they feel in some way vindicated as well, given that Alex Murdaugh, went through that civil case and, as prosecutors claimed, was trying to shield his finances, any of his assets from being revealed in that wrongful death lawsuit. So I'm sure there are plenty of folks in the county and the surrounding counties who are happy to see that, despite the power and prestige of this family, that this verdict was still handed down.
I'm glad you brought up that boat accident, because Fatima posted on our YouTube page, what was his motive? And you alluded to part of the motive was he did not want to disclose his finances. And he and his son, Paul, were being sued in a civil wrongful death case. The son, Paul, was driving a boat, apparently under the influence. There was an accident. A young girl is killed, and the family is suing both the dad as the guardian of the son, Paul. And it was deposition time. It was disclosure time. It was, show us what money you have. And he did not want to reveal his finances because, according to the prosecutors, it would have all started to unravel. Not just that he probably has no money, but all the money he had stolen, all of the financial fraud and all of the other financial misdeeds that he had been involved in. I want to ask you about the prosecutor. What's his reputation? What was it? Because the attorney general for the state called Prosecutor Creighton Waters, he called his efforts heroic, adding that he did a fantastic job that couldn't be duplicated by any other attorney in South Carolina. That is a pretty high compliment coming from another attorney. Did Creighton Waters have a great reputation? Was he known for being a tough prosecutor that wins his cases?
Yeah, I can say at the very least that Creighton Waters has been doing this for a very long time. He's generally well respected. He even, as a much younger prosecutor, tried some cases with Alex Murdaugh's father, who died just 3 days after the murders happened, so a year or so ago. During Alex Murdaugh's father's time as the solicitor in that area. So very experienced, well respected. I can't go into too many specifics as far as what folks around the legal community have their individual opinions on him, but a lot of folks were complimentary of his job on the cross-examination of Alex Murdaugh. Some other folks said that he spent a little bit too much time on the financial stuff and what was, of course, a murder trial, but it seems like that resonated with the jury and drove home the point that he was hoping it would, that Alex Murdaugh has a history of deceit.
And so we know right before or right after the defense rested that there was a visit. The jurors, the judge, the lawyers, they all went to, is it called Moselle? That's this massive property that the Murdaugh family owned. It was the kennel, the dog kennel on that property where the murders took place. That's kind of unusual. I'm thinking back to the O.J. Simpson trial. That was the trial of the century then. There was a visit to the home in Brentwood, California, and that became almost like a tourist attraction, as sad as that is, because we're talking about the deaths of people in that case as well. And it appears that that's what's happening to this property at the Murdaugh zone, that people are starting to come into that county just to visit it. What do you think happens now? Alex is, going away for life, whether he gets the 30 years or the life. Maggie is dead. Paul is dead. What happens to that big property?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and defense attorney Dick Harpootlian had even said that prior to the jury's visit, that folks had come up, they've been taking selfies, they've been taking pictures of the kennels where the murders occurred, and he was rightfully upset at that, as I think most folks should be. But I would definitely have to go back and check myself on this, but as I recall, it was reported that the property is already in the process of being sold or very close to being sold, if I remember correctly. I, again, would have to go back and check that. But this property, it wasn't in the Murdaugh's possession for a super long time. This is not a long-standing family estate. They actually purchased this property in 2013. From a man who Alex Murdaugh was close friends with throughout his life, and interestingly tied up in the in the drug dealing aspects of this case and of Alex Murdaugh's life. The man that he purchased the property from and his father had been charged in the 1980s as part of a large-scale drug smuggling operation. Wow. But those charges were dropped because a key witness in that case had died. He was hit by a car in the days leading up to the trial. So a lot of folks pointed to that drug dealing connection and hypothesized, could this have tied into the murders in any way?
Well, we know Alex Murdaugh, his theory was that people were so angry at Paul after the boat accident, he was getting hate mail, people were threatening his life, that he thought it was someone that was, being revengeful because of the boat accident. But clearly, that theory required, as the prosecutor said, for someone to know at that very moment that Paul and Maggie would be there, but that Alec would not be there. So that theory, that was, we call that a dog that didn't hunt. Nobody actually believed that. Obviously, the jurors didn't believe it. Well, I want to thank you, Blake. You will be, I imagine, either outside that courthouse or in that courthouse tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. When the sentencing occurs. Is that correct?
For the last couple of weeks, we have our company sent all of us out there for those first 4 or 5 weeks. Now that things have started to, generally cooled down, we have the man who will be inside the courtroom for the rest of the way is John Monk. I recommend everybody, go follow John Monk. He's been doing this for a very long time. Ted Clifford will be there outside, and I have now returned home. I'll be here in Hilton Head, but still keeping an eye on the live stream, keeping live updates going on the sentencing tomorrow morning.
Well, thank you so much for giving us that in real time analysis of what happened and what is happening on the ground there in South Carolina. All eyes will be glued to, I'm sure, the live stream and to television tomorrow for the final chapter, really, in some ways. And I'm glad that the judge is going to do the sentencing really quickly after the verdict, because these are horrific crimes, and the family of Maggie and the family of Paul now will have closure. And I'm sure they would like to be able to grieve the loss of their loved ones in private. I'm sure they don't want to have to do this through this big, massive international fishbowl, 2 docuseries, one on HBO, one on Netflix. So they're going to have to live with this for the rest of their lives. But we'll be watching as well. Thank you so much, Blake. We'll have to have you back. I appreciate your insights today.
Yeah,
wow.
Thanks for having me.
This has been an unexpected end to a trial that has captured the imagination of the nation, particularly those folks who are true crime, lovers. And true crime, we know, is such a big genre on cable TV, on streaming sites. And so 2 series, Netflix, HBO, already have already produced docuseries about this. And now we know what the final chapter is. And the final chapter will be written tomorrow when the judge hands down that sentence. Can't imagine that it will be anything other than life in prison, and if possible, without the possibility of parole. You don't kill your wife and you don't kill your son to try to avoid turning over your financial records, and don't suffer severe consequences, as he should, for this murder. Just horrific. After some news, sports, and traffic, a new show on KBLA called The Raw Report with my good friend Robin Ayers will be up. If you want to follow me and follow my continued commentary on this case, follow me on all social media platforms at Areva Martin. And next Tuesday, we're going to be watching very closely and bringing you in real time insights from a big trial that's happening, not murder, a white collar criminal case happening in federal court right here, United States of America versus Mark Ridley Thomas. Will be giving you up to the date and up to the minute insights into that trial. So make sure you check us out starting next Tuesday for United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas. I'm out, y'all. Be safe out there. KBLA Talk 1580.